This session will be examining right effort and mental discipline. And before we get started into a larger discussion, let's come into meditation, where we'll take just about 5 minutes to sit or stand or lie down, whatever your chosen seat is. And of course, coming into your chosen gaze, whether that be eyes opened or eyes closed. So give yourself just a few moments to come into this practice, transitioning in from whatever you were doing before and beginning to notice where you're currently at. Once you've found your seat and gaze, we'll begin this 5-minute brief practice by choosing an anchor of awareness of our breath. Let the breath be really the guide that comes into this mindful moment for yourself to notice the breath going in and going out. Maybe becoming more curious about the breath entering in towards the lungs, rise and fall of your chest, or even notice the breath go into your nostrils and out of your nostrils, the slight warmth as it travels out of your body, a slight sense of cold as it travels in towards your body. Giving yourself some time to notice notice biologically what's happening within your physical being, and also giving yourself time to notice any thoughts that may be arising as well. It's in this space that we continue to observe the ebb and flow of being with the present moment anchor of our breath, and the oscillating like the waves of the ocean between our breath and the thoughts that occur. Choosing to actively come back to the breath, and maybe observing any continual stories that pop up within our landscape of our minds, even within these few short minutes of our observation practice. Coming back into the body now, by taking some wiggling of your fingers and toes, maybe some gentle stretching of your neck side to side, and any natural movement that allows you to slowly come out of this practice. And whether that be your eyes were open the entire time, but if your eyes were closed, give yourself ample opportunity to gaze around and resource in the room, just taking notice of where you're currently at in this space. And whatever showed up in your practice is becoming still curious about it, observing, maybe taking a mental note. And this will serve us in our discussion of right effort. And within Buddhism, there is an idea within the Eightfold Path known as right effort. And right effort would be the sixth portion of the Eightfold Path, where there are 8 ideas, 8 understandings in finding the middle way. And right effort maybe even showing up in our practice, yes, but it most certainly shows up in our daily experience as well. And I'll read a quote here that gives power and more understanding to what right effort is. Enlightenment is not your birthright. Those who succeed do only through proper effort. So, what comes to mind when I think of effort is definitely a more westernized sense of the term, where effort in, especially within the United States, because of the meritocracy that we exist in, and the society and how we've framed what effort really is, tends to look like a lot of pushing and an overexertion of ourselves. And I'll give context to this within an example within my own life, where I have great challenge in finding a balance in exertion of my own energy. And oftentimes, a lot of my own Protestant upbringing, I found that in order to be successful or in order to have value, I had to work to have value, or I had to do more work and be even more perfect in the work to have value. And that's not necessarily true, especially according to this idea of right effort. In Buddhism, right effort is more looks like the middle way, where how can we find balance between pushing ourselves and exerting energy, and also still finding balance in not exerting enough energy. So this would look like a sense of laziness or not doing. And it varies for each person. But again, just from our Western upbringing and the meritocracy that we tend to exist in the United States, a lot of folks tend to work more than 40 hours or put in more time, as that's where many find value. And I also want to make sure to have context around even the reason behind the push Could be, again, because of the system that we exist in, where a lot of us have to push in order to survive. So it's not disregarding those aspects of someone else's lived experience, that in order to survive, we have to put forth a lot of effort. But even in that situation, how is there a balance in the effort that we exert? When I was a high school student, I definitely had this sense of perfection about me, where everything that I would do was to the nth degree, as I desired to be the best in everything that I could do. And I had this idea that I would succeed if I kept pushing. What's interesting in this is a lot of my perfectionistic tendencies drove me into negative coping tools, more centered in controlling my own food intake, where eventually it led towards an eating disorder for myself, as I wanted to keep the effort up. And in order to keep the effort, I had to use a coping method that I thought was valuable at the time, but it only led to my own destruction. So within that particular example, my right effort was not balanced in the slightest. There was definitely not this middle way of finding rest at the same time as working towards the push of graduation when I was in high school. Or even when I look at my life now, I have to think about, as a business owner, of pushing enough in order to continue to have my business grow and prosper, but not at the expense of my own well-being. So right effort looks like this continual push and pull that exists between finding ease and effort in and of itself. And each person is unique in this, in what is considered in balance. And just like a meditation practice, and even the 5-minute one that we just did, there exists this sense of right effort and mental discipline within this right effort. That when we come to our cushion or we come to lay down, there exists this push and pull between, how long should I meditate for? Will I be the most successful meditator if I meditate for 1 hour? Or do I need to pull back in order to find that right mindset and ease in the practice? And this tends to look more like the 5 hindrances that show up within Buddhism. Just to go over what those 5 hindrances are, you might have seen them in this course or heard about them before, where the 5 hindrances exist as doubt, mental and physical sluggishness, aversion, craving, and agitation. And in order to have right effort towards our meditation practice, we observe whether or not these 5 hindrances are coming up that may pull us out of our practice. So if I was having a sense of mental and physical sluggishness, for instance, there might need to be a little extra push in order for me to maintain my meditation practice, as right effort would suggest that pulling back would continue to create more mental and physical sluggishness. So it definitely depends on what is showing up in your practice, where, again, if I am having a sense of doubt for the practice itself, what would right effort look like in that sense? It would definitely be taking ownership of that doubt and inquiring why doubt may be arising. So finding that balance, even in the five hindrances of what might be showing up in our practice. So right effort doesn't exist just on the meditation cushion. We use the meditation cushion to notice the tendencies that show up in our mind and notice where we can find the middle way in the push and the pull of right effort in our practice. When we can experience that on the meditation cushion, we are further prepared to practice it off the cushion as well. So the Buddha definitely knew what he was talking about when he talks about this push and pull and this continual effort and ease that arises in every single aspect of our life. That's showing up in mental discipline of our mind and noticing the five hindrances that show up and how we can stay in balance within the effort of either our meditation practice or whatever is showing up in our life. We can become that much stronger in a balanced practice of our lived experience when we exert a balanced effort. As we continue to look at the Eightfold Path and some of the other Dharma talks that will show up in the Namaste Project's library, becoming curious about what shows up in your own practice on and off the meditation cushion as well. And just seeing how some of the Dharma talks are not just relevant to our mindfulness experience, but is also relevant to the totality of our own lives.